Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the RLN podcast. I'm your host, Eli Detter, and we are back in the studio today for a continuation of the episode that we did with Deyvid Palepale. I have him back here in the studio, and we are just going to kind of continue discussing and talking about some of the events that kind of led to him leaving Hempfield and going over to Manheim Township. Deyvid, for those who didn't listen to the first episode, introduce yourself, man.
Yep. Thanks for having me again. My name is Deyvid Palepale. I used to go to Hempfield all the way up until the beginning of my senior year. I go to Manheim Township now. There I played football, basketball, track and field, and I threw shot and discus there. I'm continuing my football and academics at the University of Michigan. And yeah, let's get into it.
All right. So I'm gonna see how good my memory is. I'm gonna try to summarize kind of what happened for a quick summary for those who didn't listen to the first one. So basically, at about around this time last year, you had gotten an offer from a really good school down in Florida. And you had originally accepted that offer, and you had gone to your football coach, and you were like, hey, I got this offer from a school down in Florida. I really want to go. I want to do it. And your coach obviously did not take it the best way and got a little upset and, thought that it was a scheme that you had been planning for a while, even though this has all happened in like a week's time. And then you had gotten, I don't remember if it was your coach that told you that your brother had gotten moved up to varsity. And it was you really wanted the opportunity to finally be able to play with your brother on the same team and the same level. So you stayed. And you said all through the summer, kind of tensions were kind of high, and the mood was kind of off. And then the season started. You had to go down to, I believe it was you had to go to Alaska to get your great grandfather or grandfather?
My great grandfather.
Okay, your great grandfather. And then while you were there, you also, took the time to get your tribal tattoo. And then your coach was like, hey, if you go and you miss this week, you're not going to be able to play the first game. You're like, that's fine. Family first. Absolutely. Totally support that. And then you come back and you can't play the first game. And then, gosh, I'm forgetting what happened. Honestly, I'm going to let you fill in for the rest of there. I forget what happened after that.
Just backing off what you said, came back. Everything, he made stipulations for it where I could play, and then did the same for my teammate. First game, I broke my foot. Ended up having a foot fracture,
right.
And then missed like around 6 games. Came back. We weren't doing too well throughout the whole season. Complete turnaround from what we did the year before. And then, I guess I'll pick up from there.
Yeah.
So, we played Wilson. That was the homecoming week, which, we were talking about, like, it was a real fun week, everything like that. And, we ended up losing. And so, I messed up making a TikTok, actually, that indirectly took a shot at him. It wasn't necessarily, to make him look bad, because I didn't really, what the TikTok said was, we suck. And in the caption, I was like, would anybody be willing to be our head coach?
Right.
And so, that's something you don't do.
Right.
You never make fun of your boss, like that's just a no. And, I take full responsibility for that. My parents raised me a lot better than to, go out and drag somebody and their name, that person who has a family and everything, with a job, everything like that. So, that part was all on me. And, I think that, and then, just an accumulation of what happened throughout the summer,
Right.
and then the feelings from before that, I think that just ultimately, just led to the whole fallout. And then, I'll pick up there where he questioned, my loyalty to the program. Uh, I want to say, like, just through that whole month before I got kicked off, but my mom was literally driving my youngest brother all the way to Farmdale from where we live. And people who are from around the area, that's like a 30-minute
that
drive.
is an insane commute.
Yeah, it's not not really ideal. And then my mom was dropping me off to my teammate's house. The coach and his dad, who have a buddy. And then they ended up proposing us an idea to sign an affidavit, which they claimed it was the right way, but they bash others like Manheim Township, other schools for like this ridiculous like recruiting thing, which doesn't really happen around the area. Guys move and it's kind of hard to fault them. Um, but back to like the TikTok thing. Before when I decided I was gonna transfer, uh, well, when I did decided I was gonna transfer, um, on the coach's Twitter, he would make subliminal posts. I remember talking to one of my friends actually, not too long ago at prom. He was telling me, he was like, "Dude, do you remember when Coach was like talking about, high school kid?" He retweeted this. It was like a couple of things, but majority of them were just kind of like, high school kids committing to other high schools is crazy. Like,
Hmm.
just taking shots.
Yeah.
Not really mention my name, which
Yeah.
is exactly what I did, but I went all the way out of line. Um, and so like he was doing subliminals during then. Even when I was in Alaska, there was like hints where it was like, your star player is supposed to be present, leading. But I was in Alaska, I was family over literally anything. And so it was it was hard to take. It was because I love football so much, like people who know me
Yeah.
know that football
Yeah.
literally drives me insane. You could literally see me just sitting on the couches and rewatching highlights from like 2 years ago, just like looking at myself.
Right.
And
Just
so,
studying. Yeah.
exactly. And then, like even I'm sure if you look now, he's doing subliminals. Um, but it was all just a little hot mess. I accept full responsibility for what I've done and things that I've said, um, to the coach himself and uh, you know the the locker room like vibe was not good, and
Right.
I didn't add any good to that either. So I like to apologize to all the guys. I still love them, man. Like I've created a lot of friends and a lot of good memories I'll remember for a while. But I'm excited for the future. The defending national champs in Michigan. I'm ready just to get my future rolling and moving on from it.
Yeah. Yeah. I do want to first of all, thank you for sharing your story. It is, I bet definitely for the people who didn't know, and all they'd been hearing were rumors. It's definitely eye opening,
Yeah,
definitely to hear. I mean, I know it's only one side of the story, but still to hear,
yeah,
aside from story from someone who was actually part of it, from the person who was
yeah,
part of all this stuff. I do want to ask you, how did your family and friends kind of react to this whole thing? I know you had talked about how your
yeah,
parents weren't obviously your parents weren't really happy about all the stuff that was happening, but how did your
yeah.
brother react?
Yeah, my brother's that's my ride or die, like that's we've been, I was 2 when he was born, and so we've been pretty much together through
Yeah,
anything. Anywhere I go, he goes. Anything I do, he like is always asking, and he pretty much gets the green light. So, when he found out, when like things were circling out, like my first, I'll start with my friends because kind of like in sequence, it kind of happened like
right,
this. My good friends, Micah Gates, Elias Sherrick, guys, you've come across, the they were like completely just surprised, like
right,
I wasn't there at that practice. And um when it kind of came out, he was really, I guess the coach came out really aggressive, and they were just like shocked. They didn't really know what to say or what to do. uh I can never blame those guys for just keeping their head down and
yeah,
just, like, I'll never blame anybody for getting their own. Um, they were completely shocked. They were heartbroken, but at the same time, like life goes on. They
yeah,
were at they had a game
yeah,
to focus on, and so like it kind of had to happen fast for them.
right, right,
And so my brother found out. Like he was at the time he was napping because he wasn't feeling too good, and then uh, so I get a text. I tell my parents. My parents like, "Are you sure?" Like they're literally questioning me because like my friends play jokes all the time.
Right.
Like it's just something we
Right.
do. And so my brother wakes up from a nap not too long after, and then my parents tell him, and then he was like, "Well." Like no hesitation, he was just like, "Well, if David's gone, I'm out."
Right.
And so like he's just he's a freshman, and like I really was kind of like upset that he did that, but at the same time, it was just like I understand where he's coming
Right.
from.
Yeah.
'Cause I would have done the same thing if it was him.
Yeah.
But it was heartbroken, not only because of me, but he had his season stripped of him as well. But like that's my guy. And then as far as my parents, my parents will always like, even right or wrong, they'll correct me, but they'll always be in my corner. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I did, they did, I did get a good little lecture out of what I did, and posting, like
Right.
that's not good. That's not right. That's not what I was brought up to be. And so like, um, but the fact that they found out, um, through the news, it was kind of like a backstab because my dad would always approach the coach. They would always talk. There, during that practice that I mentioned the last episode where it
Right.
was um that where I got told to run, and I told my dad, he came in, and they would always have an open line of communication. I'm sorry. At least that's what he thought. And so when this came out, like my parents will always ride for me, and so that their reaction to it was 10 times worse than I could have done,
Yeah.
but they didn't really go out, do too much. They just were like on me, but
Yeah.
at the same time batting for me. So,
Right. 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 Right.
I think I love my support crew though.
The typical parent response.
Yeah, yeah, right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely with what you said about your brother. I mean, that's an absolutely brother thing to do. I
Yeah,
know that absolutely if any of my siblings were in that sort of situation, I would hesi- without hesitation, I would be like, yeah, I'm with them.
yeah,
It's
right,
that. Yeah, it's that connection. It's that brotherly
exactly.
connection. It's that family. It's the blood connection. And it's crazy because me and my sibling, we don't share an ounce of blood, but
Yeah, yeah,
we're still.
yeah,
I definitely know that despite all the trouble that mainly I caused with our relationship,
yeah,
we're still always there for each other whenever we would have to, we definitely would, and currently
yeah,
whenever we need to,
exactly.
we are. So I mean, that's testament to family and stuff like that. Um,
Right, yeah,
how did you find was the best way, when you kind of saw all this stuff was happening and you're like, oh my gosh, it was kind of all happening kind of at once. Um,
yeah,
how did you kind of figure out, were you able to figure out kind of a way to deal with it, whether it's just to, release some stress or something like that, whether it's playing basketball with
yeah.
your friends or football or something like that?
Uh, yeah, and like, when I found this out, I didn't really know what to do. Like, I think for a minute I was just kind of like down. Like I didn't want to do anything. People asked me if I wanted to go out and chill. I was like, I don't know, I don't want to. Um, but I think the biggest thing for me was you know, chilling with my brother. I mean, we were both in the same situation where it was just both not doing anything after school,
Right.
both off the team, and so um, I think our connection was already so deep, but I think at that time we just I don't know, like we clicked. Like no matter what we were doing, we would just be. We literally could be. We were sitting, literally not even watching TV. We're just sitting on the couch,
Yeah.
just like staring. But
Yeah.
like I feel like I think that's like all you need
Oh
sometimes is
yeah,
just that
absolutely.
presence and just like dozing off. Like and then all of a sudden it's just like you want to go out and eat, or it's like just talking about the most
Yeah.
random things, like
Oh
ranking
yeah.
our top 10 foods.
Yeah.
I think it was just connecting with him that really, brought me back together. And,
Yeah.
now I'm doing really good, here at Manor Township. I do track and field, which, hey, congrats on the United, you know, unified track and field.
Thanks, man.
I
Yeah,
watched that.
that
That
was.
looked really fun.
Oh man, that was definitely probably the most fun extracurricular thing I've done in a very long time. That was really fun.
Yeah, I loved watching from afar, but likewise, I'm doing kind of the same thing here at the track and field here.
Yeah.
Just enjoying myself before, I head off.
Right.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely it's. Now, have you actually like gone and practiced with any of the Michigan players?
Um, I haven't gone out and practice yet, but when I did go up last June, they were having like their summer practice, and so I got a quick little glimpse of all that. But I will go up like early June after I walk,
Right.
and that's when I start. So,
Nice.
yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, that's definitely that'll be fun. It's crazy. I've always, I don't know, football was always something that was like, could always almost see myself doing it, and then at the last second be like, but I get injured so easily. I feel like
Yeah,
like it's not even because
yeah,
I don't even really have a history of injuries. I feel like that would be the one thing that I would be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do
yeah,
football, and then boom, I get
yeah.
knocked out with a freaking broken leg or something like that. I'm just like,
No, yeah,
I'm not willing to risk that quite yet.
no, yeah. I get it, man. It's such a physical sport, and
Yeah,
it's like I don't know. I think about it all the time, and it's just like, well, you will only live once, so I'm just
right.
gonna. I love it already. I'm just gonna
Yeah,
keep doing it.
yeah,
But
um,
yeah, I definitely get it.
yeah. Now I do want to. I mean, you are like I said on the in the beginning of the other episode, you are a very well-known person. If you say David Palepale, probably to any person who follows high school football sports or even
Yeah,
college, they will know who they're talking about. How have you, kind of first, how did you kind of get who kind of introduced you to that whole world, and second, how have you kind of dealt with people
yeah,
probably coming up to you for being like, hey, you want to do an interview or something like that? Yeah, how have you kind of dealt
yeah.
with that?
Um. So like, yeah. I don't know. As we mentioned, the last episode where it was like, I played football just for the fun of it, and my parents really took it serious before I ever did.
Right.
And they just pushed me to be good, and that eventually led me to gain an offer.
Yeah.
I'll never forget the person who first gave me an offer, which is from Louisville, Coach Gasparotto. So I mean, I guess I could thank him and my parents for putting me in that kind of spotlight. But like um I've always the same way I am now has always been the same way I've been. I've always been like outgoing, not necessarily outgoing, but I've always welcomed everybody with open arms.
Right.
I've always, I'm a people person, like no matter what, I'll talk to anybody,
Yeah.
I'll crack jokes with anybody. And so like I think that really just, stands out from like a lot of other people, in my position, I think. It's just me to be personable and like, not just so stuck up.
Yeah.
I've, like I know a lot of people can be like that, and um not everybody's like that, but I think that just I've been always open to anybody and anything. And so like it just came naturally, I guess. My first interview I was super scared. I forget what it was. I think it was LMP. They came and they talked about my background and like where I was from. I was just like the whole time. So like it definitely
Yeah.
took a lot of getting used to.
Oh yeah.
But
I still. Oh my gosh. That's like, dude. I say after like every sentence when I
no,
speak
yeah,
in like a video
it's
or
like
something like that. It's just. It's like it's the filler word because I'm like, because I'm still.
exactly.
Because sometimes what I try and what I've tried to do is when I go into like I'll come into a certain monologue or topic and I'll be like
Yeah,
I may know nothing about the topic. I'm just trying to figure it out as I
yeah.
go, and I don't have like a script written down. I just going as I'm going, and I'll be like, so
Exactly.
this happened, and then that happened.
Yeah,
But
no,
yeah,
right.
that's horrible. I hate doing it, but it just happens.
It's literally stage fright without
Yeah.
being on a stage.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I could never I feel like that's one thing I can never do either is go on stage and just talk in front of a lot of people. But again, it's like the thing we're doing right now is pretty much the same
Yeah.
thing. Is the comfort of knowing that, it's just one-on-one
Right.
until it gets brought out to, hundreds.
Right.
But it's definitely getting some, I'm getting used to it, and I gotta get used to it if I really want to take this seriously.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it. Yeah. See, I don't have the ability to say I've actually been interviewed for much else than like school stuff. But I mean, even
Yeah.
that, like I did. Let's see, I did 2 interviews for about the podcast for it was for like our school news, the Hempfield happenings
Yeah.
and WHHS, and that was fun. I mean, it was fun. It definitely got a lot of people to see. Oh, Eli does that, and I was like, "Yep." How
Yeah.
have you not realized I did it now? But I it's always an amazing thing. I mean, there's always something that happens every day where it was, whether it's about the podcast or something about, stuff that I do all the time. And
Yeah.
it's amazing to see people's reaction. It's amazing to obviously, I mean, I'm sure after like sure after you got on like ESPN, people came up to you and were like, "Oh my gosh, that's David Palepale." I was like, but it's
Right.
amazing to see that. I mean, you make content and you spread it, and people see it, they recognize you for it,
Yeah.
and you either get praised for it or you get trashed for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just the honest. That's not. It doesn't always necessarily mean you did a good job or a bad job. It's just how other people are
Yeah.
gonna receive your
Right.
message and stuff like that.
No,
But
definitely.
I definitely. I mean, have you ever, um, gosh, have you ever even like entertained the idea of like making some sort of like um I don't know, page or some sort of like blog or site, something like that, just to kind of
Yeah.
share your own experience with the world, such as just like this, not a podcast, but like the podcast, where it's as a
Yeah.
public thing that people can go and kind of learn more about you. Have you ever thought about doing that?
Yeah, what's funny is I actually just made a YouTube account, and then my dad and we always talk about, like, you know, when you go to college, you should start a podcast. And I
Yeah,
was just like, that's always something like I always feel like I can do, but when the time comes and when I'm really
yeah.
trying to do it, I can never get myself to do it. So it's like, I don't know what it is. I don't know if I'm scared to do it. I don't know if I'm like,
Honestly,
you know,
like, here's the thing. So, I mean, I'm sure all the people listening probably know. I mean, me and Steven created the podcast back in October. I
yeah,
believe. I don't remember if it was before homecoming or not. But we created back in October. I think it might have been the weekend before homecoming. We did it,
yeah,
and because I remember I sent something out on Snapchat, and people were like, "Yeah, you should do that. You should totally do that." Steven texted me. He's like, "Dude, I'll do the podcast with you." I was like, "Wait, what?" Like this is so
yeah,
random. Because I kind of knew Steven just because I would
yeah,
hang out with him at like basketball games and stuff, like football games,
yeah.
stuff like that. And he texted me. He's like, "Yeah, I'll do the podcast with you." I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is awesome." So I think
No, yeah,
I think we fully had a created, Instagram, Spotify. I think we
yeah.
had all that stuff created within probably 3 days. Just because I was,
Jeez.
I was like I was working around the clock trying to figure out how to get our stuff
Yeah.
public. Um, and I was literally looking this morning. Our first podcast ever was October 23rd, 2023. Um,
Jeez.
like, I mean, well, you know what? That's not true because I actually had to delete the first episode because I didn't have the file for it anymore, and it was in the wrong
Yeah.
file format, so it wasn't showing up. So I was like, oh, dang it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, a podcast is one of those things that if you know how to do it well, obviously that's gonna
Yeah.
count a lot, and two, it's you kind of just have to dive into it head first. Like
Yeah.
there's not much of a,
There's
I
like
mean, there's not much of
not
a
much
strat.
guidelines.
Exactly. Like
Right. It's just kind of
there's not
that's
some people are like, yeah, I'm gonna wait until like I have a full online presence. I'm like, dude, I did not wait. We
yeah.
we didn't have more than probably 20 people who knew that the podcast was a thing when we made our first
Yeah.
episode. And we just made it. We're like, dude, we're doing it. It was
Yeah.
fun. People were kind of like, oh, okay, they knew about it. And then
Yeah.
it's only probably been this past month and a half that it really started to kick off. Probably the last
Yeah.
2 months. Because I started doing more stuff. I started getting more people. Started getting more high profile
Yeah.
people. And it's really, I mean, just like your interviews, and I mean your interviews, this podcast. It's all about one thing. You pick a topic that people care enough to
Right.
listen about for 5 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
And you keep them hooked and you talk to them, and that's really what podcasting is about. It's not even about it's not even about really.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to learn how to I don't
Right.
manipulate. It almost is manipulating because you have to make them believe what you're saying and also want to listen to.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's like what first of all, congrats. Like you guys have grown a lot
Thanks,
within
man.
a really short amount of time. It kind of seems forever, but when you really think about it, it's not that long.
Yeah.
But like that's kind of what me and my dad said. We always talk about like, so I listen to a lot of podcasts, yours, a lot of my, people I look up to in sports. And part of it for me is just kind of like being able to relate to other people,
Right.
because once you really listen and dive into, not even like I'll do random people, I'll just be like, oh, this seems cool. I'll listen to it, and like next thing you know, like I connect with that person just
Right.
because like,
Right.
whether they went through something or like everybody goes through something and everybody like experiences different things. And once you kind of connect just a little bit, you're like hooked to hear just a little
Yeah.
bit more.
Yeah.
And so like, that. And then as far as like the YouTube thing, I've always wanted to do this since freshman year. And like,
Just didn't have time
with
for it.
college coming up, it's gonna be like my downtime's gonna
Right.
be YouTube. So
Right.
like, day in a life maybe,
Yeah.
what I eat in a day, which is a lot. But that could be a
Oh
whole
yeah.
episode in itself.
Yeah.
So like, just like, um, just my personality, just put on social media, just
Yeah.
I feel like would be fun.
I
That's
mean,
something I've always thought about.
yeah, and it's even. I mean, that's great, and it's even better because it's. I don't know. Um, I know when I do my stuff. I mean, people complain all the time. They're like, "Oh my gosh, you post so much." I'm like, "Yep, I do. I
Yeah, like
I
you
post
kind
all
of
the
have
time.
to. Right.
it's and every once in a while, one post or one reel will get a couple 100,000 views, and it's just you go, and something will pick up,
Yeah,
something people will
it'll
track on.
always hit.
Yeah, and
Right.
it's you just have to be willing to try hard enough and work long enough that
Yeah.
you can finally get to that spot. Like I'm surprised that the podcast is even where it is today, and I'm so
Yeah.
excited to see where it goes in the future. I mean, gosh,
Right.
when we first started, I don't think either Steven or I were really thinking, oh, this is gonna really, this is gonna be this big. But I mean, now it's a
Yeah.
thing. And everyone in the school knows. They know now. They know me now as Eli, the podcast guy, which is almost degrading, but it's fun. It's
Yeah.
awesome that people recognize that. But
Oh yeah,
it's
definitely.
yeah. I mean, to anything that you start, you gotta be willing to put enough work that you finish it because you don't.
Right.
No one wants to. You don't want to start something and just never finish it. Whether it's
Exactly.
whether it's sports, whether it's I don't know, freaking reading a book, whether it's going and exercising, whether it's
Right.
a podcast, whether it's a relationship, you
Yep.
can't start something and leave it unfinished. You have to go through the whole thing. You got it.
Yeah.
You can't stop.
Definitely.
No.
Definitely. Oh yeah, I think you said it the best right there. That's just I definitely gotta just go with it. I gotta just wing it.
Yeah.
I gotta get myself to do it though.
I mean, hey, I'm not even the most successful, and I winged every step of it. There's none of this has been planned. I'm just like, dude, I make plans on the spot, and I'm just like, okay, I guess we'll do this now. I've gone through like 3 different names for the podcast, 3 different versions, 3 different styles. Just because every time I find one, I'm like, dang, I need to change something. I need,
Yeah.
I need to change how I'm doing
That-
this. But yeah, it's a wild ride, and I hope it never ends.
No, yeah, for
'Cause
sure. It's exciting to watch your growth and you guys' podcast. Soon it'll be like up there. It just
yeah,
has to hit.
I hope it gets
It's
there, and
gonna
I'm
hit.
I'm not gonna stop until it does.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good mentality right there.
Yeah. I just to kind of finish this off with all the stuff that has gone on in the past. Oh gosh, and I'm just gonna round about in the past year. Do you have
Yeah.
any one? I mean, you can give me a lesson and a piece of advice, anything that you would like to share, just about whether it's about your unique situation or just kind of certain situations in general that people hear about, and rumors get spread around and all that stuff. Do you have any advice or lesson that you've learned?
Um, I think uh, I know it's cliche, but just control the controllables, and then everything else will fall in place.
Yeah,
Don't lose yourself over something that you really have no control of, because then you're just gonna drive yourself crazy, and next thing you know, you're just in this pit that you can't get out of.
right.
I think that's just kind of that's something that I took very lightly, and when it hit me in my head, I didn't really know how to get up out of it until now. I guess I can give you another one if
Yeah,
that's
go ahead,
cool.
man.
My dad told me, stupid people learn from their own mistakes, but a smart one will learn from others. I
That's
That's
good.
something that stuck with me. So
Yeah,
I think if somebody's willing to learn from my mistake, to make them a better person,
right,
I think that's
right.
so props to you.
Yeah.
Don't learn from your own.
I mean, yeah, that's everything that's ever happened in my life. All of it, I don't regret it because it needed to happen. Whether it
Yeah,
was for me or someone else, it needed to happen. Um,
you're right.
Absolutely, that's powerful. That's a good one. I'm gonna save that. I'm gonna save that one. Um,
Yeah, that
well,
my dad stuck me with that one.
the parent. It's always the parents. They get the best ones in, man. They know how to get the
Right.
best ones in.
That
Um,
is true.
well, thank you, man, for coming on here for 2 episodes now.
Thank you.
Giving up your time with us. For all the listeners, we truly hope that you have, like David said, you learn from mistakes. You learn from these situations, that you don't ever don't ever take the situation you have for granted, and also any situation that you put in that's difficult. You're gonna get through it. You're gonna learn from it. Whether and it needs to happen, whether it's for you or for someone else, it needs to happen. So yeah, you just got to get through it. Of course, David, like I said, thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been
Yeah.
wonderful talking to you. For all those listening, of course, you can find David on Instagram at Deyvid Palepale. And you can find me and the podcast at RLM Podcast on Instagram. You can also find this podcast on Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast, everywhere pretty much. I'm spreading my bandwidth. But yeah, man, have a wonderful day, man. And for all you listeners, we hope you have a wonderful day as well.